January 28th, Tuesday, 2014, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the state of affairs. I know Obama is going to do another State of the State address to the nation here coming up soon, and I wanted to put my 2 cents in and be on record. I can't speak for everybody, but in a true sense, I can speak for everybody because human beings have a lot of commonalities. I mean, the differences are pointed out so often that we forget that we have a lot more in common than out of common, so to speak. Our interests are very much akin, alike to one another. That it's not hard to figure out that if there's certain things we want in our lives for our sense of safety, security, peace of mind, then it's fair to assume typically that everybody else wants those things too. It's kind of a no-brainer, you know. And one of the things that I find lacking is my peace of mind. I feel frustrated, acutely frustrated, and that puts a chip on my shoulder. It makes me feel indignant. And you know, I don't like to walk around in a perpetual acute state of indignation, of frustration. I want to be free. And I seek for a way out. And when I have identified the root cause as being money, I mean, just to be blunt, it's money. That's how we're being controlled. That's how they are subjugating and marginalizing the poor and working class. I mean, who is paying the national debt in America, for example? Well, it's not the status quo because right now they don't want to rock the boat. So at least they believe that things are getting better and better for them, that they're becoming more and more healed. But, you know, what is their concern for those that aren't status quo? Those that are paying for an increased cost of living and wages not accompanying that rise in the cost of living. It's outrageous. It's outlandish. It's ridiculous. At this point in history, this is where we're at, social, economically speaking, and not only in America, but all over the world. It's pathetic. And I'll admit straight up, there's another emotion. I heard Alex Jones mention it very recently. Fear, that he's afraid. And that's definitely another feeling, because when you've got this fight or flight response, that, you know, something's forcing you to have to act, then it triggers that emotion, that adrenaline, that sense that there's danger. And, you know, the warning has gone out to you. It's gone out to me. It's gone out to everybody. We're feeling it instinctively. If nothing else, we're feeling it instinctively. And it manifests as a miasma in our senses. It makes us depressed, sad, because we're scared, because we're frustrated, because we're righteously indignant. It's not a good feeling, but it's becoming ubiquitous. And humanity is being pushed into a corner. We're finally realizing that the intentions of the people at the top of this food chain right now are very wicked people that have very, very bad intentions for humanity. For the vast majority of humanity, it's curtains. That's what these people believe has to happen. If you look at the Georgia Guidestones and you read some of the precepts these people have, they sound very altruistic. except for the part where 85% approximately of the population has to go. And if I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I also know this is that I don't want to be a stupid man. And I don't recommend anybody else out there be a stupid man or woman either. And we've got to understand what we're up against. We're up against some really bad intention in terms of your life, my life, and people you love and care about, their lives. And we need to really be on guard. And this is not a time for people to be taking people's guns, okay? I mean, briefly I'd like to speak to the Second Amendment. As most people that know me know, I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I'm not a huge gun guy, but, I wish more decent people out there were packing heat. That's my point. Because I wish at the Aurora theater shooting, there was just one decent human being in there that knew how to use a gun and could have taken that guy down, before he did any more harm. And the same thing in Sandy Hook and many of these other shootings where these guys just want to take out these people, they've lost it. It's as if they've become demon possessed. And most of them are on this pharmakia, these happy pills of some sort, you find out. And the whole thing is really creepy. I mean, this whole world system is so surreal that, to wrap our minds around it is really hard, because we want to believe there's some semblance of sensibility out there, that at somehow it all, makes sense, that our universities and colleges and our whole educational system, that it somehow makes sense. You see, but we've got all this great learning. We've got all this great invention and innovation out there that's made our work very easy. But look what's happened to us. It hasn't helped at all. Okay, if these people are oppressing us, their tyranny, their method of operation is intentional impoverishment. It's austerity. It's keeping us in fear. It's keeping us in a state of disempowerment and confusion about basic economic issues. They create problems where there aren't any. You understand how many people in this country have been employed in the economic services, as they call it, industry? It's close to 25%. 1/4 of people working in America are somehow employed in the economic services industry. Now let me ask you, if the other 75% of people were out of debt, do you understand what would happen? And it's not all 75%. It's just that there's a percentage of that 75% that's in debt. Yet the national debt is extracted through raising your cost of living and debasing your currency. So it's like running in the sand when the game is rigged and you know that you're never going to get ahead, because that's it. I mean, it's cheating and stealing and an outright open, transparent criminality is going on in our system. And the money printers have no accountability. They do what they want to do. They give protection where they want. They got the plunge protection team on Wall Street. But what do they have on Main Street? What do they have for the typical Joe out there? They got squat. They got squat to protect our standard of living. And I love to explain economics as simply as I can. And it is tied into all spirituality and all the teachings of Jesus, and all the wisest people I've ever heard out there all understand these principles. This is how we are trapped in this devil soup, this prison planet. This is how we're all kept in bondage and chains, is through the money. Okay, this whole idea that it facilitates exchange. Hey, you know what? That was fun when it, might have worked. Okay, if you had sound currency, we could play it. But what's eventually happens when you've got sound currency is you've got prosperity across the board. This is progress. This shows that you're able to supply more and more and more, driving down your burden, your cost of living. So as humanity, as a team, collectively, supplies more and more and more, easier and easier and easier, our work week continues to drop, our prosperity continues to grow, Okay, people serve one another with a bounce in their steps, with joy in the heart and a song on their lips, instead of how it is now. Insecure, not feeling appreciated, sucking lemons. I mean, it doesn't have to be like this, folks. Don't believe people that tell you it does. We're all being taken. Nobody has to be left out of the loop. That's my point. So when it all comes down, folks, what's going on in America and around the world, everybody can feel it. You can cut it with a knife, is there's a battle brewing. And I already believe it's taking place in the heavenly realms, let's say, spiritual, higher, because, I believe in the invisible, as any good scientist should believe in the invisible, because it's real. Because we know there's the most powerful forces are invisible. I mean, for crying out loud, what keeps the planets suspended from one another? What keeps our solar system, moving like a fine Swiss watch? How does this happen? Because it's all gravity, electromagnetic functions of various sorts. It's a fascinating thing. You got your atmosphere. You got your oxygen that we need for life. It's incredible. So the idea that we are eternal beings, that we get to keep what's real, how it's written, like Jesus said, whatever's not destroyed with fire, will survive. And that fire, I believe, is the Holy Spirit. That's how it's tested. If you've got qualities that are beautiful to God, that are real, that have substance, they're invested in the right values. You've got your values right. You value your conscience. Then you get to keep those things. This is what makes sense to me. And, the rest is going to be destroyed, all the nonsensical babble. Because, when God starts asking us personally, one-on-one questions, we don't want to answer with a bunch of psychobabble. We want to have our heads screwed on straight. We want to know very clearly, our idea of paradise. How would it be if we were running the world? Put ourselves in God's place. I mean, for crying out loud, God is not threatened by mere mortals, desiring to see through his eyes and seeing how would it be if you were running it. How would it be? Let's not always wait for other people to come up with ideas, like is so often the case. I mean, it's great to learn from other people, but we have to figure things out on our own, because we have God-given imagination. We are equally loved, and we've been endowed with all the same gifts as all humanity. Great intelligence and great potential. Our imagination is pretty much unlimited. To some degree, I think it is limited because we can't see the bounds of the universe, but there is one that understands those things, as we might understand some things that we didn't understand for thousands of years, like gravity, of which we still barely understand. But there's other forces out there that are invisible that, look at radio waves. This stuff is fascinating, the things that travel right through the invisible air that are very powerful and very real. But anyhow, folks, I didn't want to talk too long today, but I did want to say that take heart, because ultimately I think the decent people, the righteous people, I mean, albeit the righteousness of men, like it says, is as filthy rags to the Lord. Okay, nevertheless, true, because we're all sinners, and we got to remember that at one point, God was so angry with our fallen state, our choice, to have this. This hidden knowledge we weren't supposed to have, that he wished he didn't create us. We have to remember that we hurt him really bad. Whatever happened, it was bad. And so we inherited this sinful state where death didn't come immediately at the fall, but it came over time. It wasn't intended. God's intention when he put us here was not that we die, but in our sinful state now, at birth, it's in our DNA, it's in the blood, we're passing it down from generation to generation. We've all got it. And, we have to face that reality. And, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just the way it is. And, you know, we've got to contend with it and help our children to understand, help others to cope with this state that we're in.